HS2 is the planned high-speed rail link between London and Birmingham, and then eventually on up to Scotland. Various routes were considered and 3 alternatives put forward. The route known as Route 3 is the preferred option to be taken forward for consultation. HS1 is the existing high-speed link between St Pancras and the Channel Tunnel, now sold off to overseas investors for a fraction of its construction cost. This presentation follows the route across the Chilterns in order to show the impact it would have on this designated area of outstanding natural beauty. The route would start from a redeveloped Euston station and approach the Chilterns from South Ruislip on a viaduct 2.2 miles long. This would pass right over the Hillingdon Outdoor Activity Centre, which provides outdoor education for all, but with priority given to young people and those who are disadvantaged or disabled. The viaduct would then cross the middle of the lake at a height of 13 metres at speeds of up to 200 miles an hour. It would then cross the Grand Union Canal and Save Lake, one of the premier carp fishing lakes in the UK. Then on to the Broadwater Lake Reserve. The Mid-Colne Valley is a designated site of special scientific interest. It has nationally significant populations of breeding woodland and wetland birds. The viaduct then crosses the middle of Calder Lake and the River Colne, before emerging from woodland onto arable farmland on its way towards the M25. The route would then enter a 6-mile-long twin-bore tunnel and pass 20 metres below the motorway. This is one of the busier sections of the M25 and has recently been widened to 4 lanes. There would be 4 emergency access shafts to the tunnel. The third of these would be on farmland next to Bottom House Farm Lane in Chalfont St Giles. Space would be permanently required around the shaft to accommodate maintenance and emergency services vehicles. In some locations, local road construction would be required to provide suitable access. It is also at this point that the route would tunnel under the River Misbourne. This is one of the few precious chalk streams in the Chilterns. These are an internationally scarce and protected habitat. There are serious concerns arising from the geology and hydrology of the ground underlying the route. Construction of the Amersham Tunnel could lead to long-term damage to the chalk aquifer system and possible pollution of the main water supply system for South Buckinghamshire and northwest London, with a subsequent need to source water from more distant locations. Depression of the water table in the Misbourne Valley could result in the total loss of surface flow in the Misbourne River and destruction of the adjacent habitats. There would be a real danger that the river would be lost forever. The tunnel would pass under parts of Old Amersham to the exit in Mantles Green Farm. This is just 300 metres from the historic High Street in Old Amersham, which is a conservation area with many listed buildings. Trains would emerge into a cutting some 90 metres wide and over 22 metres deep. This is also the possible site for a massive construction camp which would devastate this whole area for several years. Cuttings here would be partially retained, and a 150-metre wide land bridge added which would allow 2 footpaths to remain open. This part of the route cuts across the middle of arable farmland. This bridge would be the only provision for farm traffic to cross the cutting in this section. Overlooking the route here is Chardelot's, a listed building of special architectural and historic interest that was built for William Drake MP in the mid-18th century. The route then passes through ancient and historic woodland and crosses a series of roads that vary in size from single-track lanes to the main Chesham to Great Missenden Road before entering a 3/4-mile-long single-bore tunnel. This would entail considerable excavation in order to tunnel under the existing Chiltern railway line. Just across the Misbourne Valley at this point is the village of Little Missenden, including the Saxon church, of St. John the Baptist. The route would exit the tunnel into more arable farmland on its way to Hyde Lane. The overbridge and cutting here would mean that Hyde Farm, part of which is a listed building, and Chapel Farm would be demolished, devastating this quiet hamlet. It would also mean the end of yet another footpath. The route then crosses more farmland before reaching the Chesham Road alongside Annie Bailey's restaurant. The route on this section would now be in a 900-metre-long green tunnel until it passes Frith Hill. These roads are vital links between the villages and hamlets to the north of the route and Great Missenden, with its many and varied facilities. The route would then cross several more footpaths before cutting through the Iron Age earthworks of Grimm's Ditch. It then passes under more road bridges. These roads are mostly single track and would have to be straightened and widened to allow construction of the bridges. More roads than railway were made during the construction of HS2 in Kent. At Wendover Dean, Durham Farm would be demolished to make way for a 450-metre viaduct, which would have a maximum height of 17 metres. The Chiltern Way, one of the few footpaths to survive, would pass under this viaduct. From here, the route gradually descends towards Wendover. Roadbarn Farm would be demolished to make way for another viaduct, which would cross the A413 and the Chiltern Railway line at speeds of up to 250 miles an hour. St Mary's Church is just 250 metres away from the route at this point as it leaves the viaduct and continues on a low embankment. This means that a road bridge here would have to be raised by approximately 9 metres. The route would then enter a 300-metre-long cut and cover tunnel to cross under the Ellsborough Road. A number of houses would have to be demolished here. Ellsborough Road leads down into Wendover, just 130 metres away. The route across the Chilterns would require the construction of 5 tunnels totalling 7.5 miles in length. This would involve the removal of at least 5.6 million tonnes of spoil. That amounts to approximately 311,000 lorry loads from the tunnels alone, and perhaps as much again from the cuttings. There are no details about just where all this spoil would go or how it would be removed. There would be 3 viaducts with a total length of nearly 3 miles and 12 bridges. Track width would be a minimum of 75 metres, maximum in the Chilterns 130 metres. Trains would run for 19 hours a day from Monday to Saturday and 16 hours on Sunday. Eventually, there could be a train every 2 minutes during peak periods. At least 20 public footpaths currently cross the route through the Chilterns. Only 6 would remain after construction. Noise impacts would affect many people living along the route, with some predicted to experience high levels and a much larger number experiencing some increase. Many houses located over tunnel sections could experience vibration effects from the trains. For most of the route, a swathe of land wider than the pitch at Wembley Stadium would be required. This equates to an area of land larger than Manchester. According to HS2 Limited, the main landscape impact of the whole route to Birmingham would occur in the Chiltern Hills. The construction phase of any such project is bound to cause extensive short to medium-term disruption and long-term damage to these precious landscapes. There are also serious safety and security concerns. Stopping distance of a train travelling at maximum speed would be 9 kilometres. Peak time trains, could be less than 30 kilometres apart. This would need very sophisticated signalling systems and would leave very little room for error. Trains passing in tunnels, some of which are single-bore, would have a maximum closing speed of 500 miles an hour. The possible effects of the extreme turbulence and resultant noise cannot be known. The line would need to be protected by permanent security fencing and much unsightly signage. There would also be a considerable amount of security lighting, and this, along with overnight maintenance work, would lead to severe light pollution. Leaving aside the environmental damage along the route, there are many serious flaws in the government's business case. The demand forecast is at best wildly optimistic, assuming, as it does, an additional 240,000 journeys per day by the year 2043. The value assigned to any time saving is also exaggerated. HS2 Limited assumes that time on a train is wasted, and therefore there is a monetary value assigned to time saved for all travellers. In reality, most business travellers make good use of time on a train. The majority of business travellers prioritise punctuality and reliability over speed. Any time saving would probably result in a shorter working day for passengers rather than any increase in productivity. No weight is given to the importance of IT, which could result in a decline in the need to travel. Services will end at a new terminus on the edge of the centre of Birmingham, meaning that the actual time savings are also exaggerated. New Street is the current main station in the heart of Birmingham city centre. To reach it, passengers would have to take a bus or taxi, or perhaps even walk. Hardly the best way to end an ultra-high-speed rail journey. It is also likely that changes to existing services will lead to longer journeys for far more people than those who might benefit from HS2. There would be reductions in the number of fast trains from London to Birmingham, and some other services could be removed to free up platforms at Euston. Many other towns and cities around the country would also lose services, resulting in longer journeys and more overcrowding on the remaining trains. There is no environmental case either. The government admits that the project is likely to be carbon neutral, and even that would depend on a significant reduction in the number of domestic flights with people transferring to high-speed rail. There are no domestic flights between London and Birmingham, meaning that any possible saving would not happen until HS2 reached Newcastle, Edinburgh and Glasgow. Trains travelling at 250 miles an hour use 3 times the power of trains travelling at 125 miles an hour, meaning that HS2 would use vast amounts of electricity and could well pollute more than car travel. This would also mean the need for a new power station. This has not been included in the overall cost estimate. There would, of course, be huge carbon emissions during the construction process. The cost of construction is estimated at some £230 million per mile, making it the most expensive railway in the world and the biggest single investment project by a British government ever. To put that into some sort of perspective, it is the cost equivalent of building a Millennium Dome every 4 miles from London to Birmingham and then all the way on up to Scotland. Every household in the country would have to pay in the region of £1,000 just at the time when the government's austerity measures are really starting to bite. Any possible benefits would only accrue to a very small percentage of the population, yet all would have to pay, including, of course, those who live on the route and whose environment would be so severely damaged.